This video is to help you understand what the expectations are at the college level for English 101 primarily. For paragraph development, the writing of a strong paragraph that works well. I'm taking it primarily from the Little Brown Handbook starting on page 39, but there are also some useful ideas in your patterns book that parallel this. You can see this is not the only place it tells you these things. That starts in the patterns book on page 41, but I'm going to be referring to page 46 for the example for topic sentences. In another integrity video, I discussed writing a strong thesis statement, and the thesis statement should preview the content of your essay, should be a synopsis of that. But now we have to get down to the essay itself and its body paragraphs where you elaborate, you explain, and you provide that support for the thesis that's necessary. Okay, in this one we're looking at, first of all, the first fundamental thing that a paragraph has to do is have unity. It only can develop one idea at a time. When we typically sit down and write a first draft, we're writing things off the top of our heads, what comes to mind, and we just write as it just comes out of our head. But it doesn't end up being very unified and organized, and it's not expected to be. That's why I don't grade a one draft essay. It's expected that you have an initial draft, you kind of clean that up a little bit, get some feedback, and then you revise it and strengthen it and for a final grade. That's the expectation, because it's not speech. You can plan and prepare for that, but this is writing, and it has a timed process, and it's expected to be worked on over a period of time. Paragraph unity means it sticks to the one topic, and that is stated in a topic sentence. And the topic sentence should always be the first sentence that we read that tells the reader what the paragraph is about. It's underlined here. Some people really like chili, apparently, but nobody can agree how the stuff should be made. Now, that doesn't need a lot of explanation, but sometimes a topic sentence might need some additional explanation before you give examples. This one moves right on to examples, specific examples. C.V. Wood, twice winner at Terlingua, uses flank steak, pork chops, chicken, and green chilies. Okay, that's fine. My friend Hughes Rudd of CBS News, who imported 500 pounds of chili powder into Russia as a condition of accepting employment as Moscow correspondent, favors coarse ground beef. Still good, different ingredients. Isidore Bleckman, the cameraman I must live with on the road, insists upon 1-inch cubes of stew beef and puts garlic in his chili. An Illinois affectation, which means that's how they do it in Illinois. An Indian of my acquaintance, Mr. Fulton Batiste, who eats chili for breakfast when he can, uses buffalo meat and plays an Indian drum while it's cooking. I ask you. Now, this is not a formal essay. It's from a reporter for Dateline. But everything in every statement, comment, detail supports this idea that there are a great variety of ways that people, think ways that chili could be made and what should be a part of it. So this is an example of a paragraph with unity. Well, let's take a look at one that falters. We're going to get the not so good example here. See if I can bump it up just a little. Okay. Some people really like chili, apparently, but nobody can agree how the stuff should be made. There's our topic sentence, so everything should be from that. And it says it works because it follows the previous one on its central idea stated in the first sentence of the topic sentence. And each of the next four offers an example. But, watch here. C.V. Wood, twice winner at Terlingua, uses flank steak, pork chops, chicken, and green chilies. So far, so good. My friend Hughes Rudd, who imported 500 pounds of chili powder into Russia as a condition of accepting employment as Moscow correspondent, favors coarse ground beef. Still good. He had some trouble finding the beef in Moscow, though. He sometimes had to scour all the markets and wait in long lines. For any American used to overstocked supermarkets and department stores, Russia can be quite a shock. Okay, this paragraph lost its way. Yes, it's linked to what came. I mean, it's cohesive in the sense of it's not totally random. It makes sense, why he's talking about beef, and he had trouble finding beef in Moscow, and he had to look everywhere, and this wasn't what he was used to. But it the paragraph itself doesn't have any unity. It's not, you go back to the topic sentence. It lost its way when it started talking about the difficulty of finding an ingredient. That's not what this paragraph is supposed to be about. Now this says there's other places for the topic sentence, and that's because this will cover a wide variety of styles, the Little Brown Book. It's all about narrative and descriptive. We're not writing that kind, and we're going for clarity. So we're always going to follow the path for our writing that is the strongest and the clearest, and we're going to keep ours up front. These are mostly exceptions, and we're going to go for the best case scenario. The next quality that a paragraph must have is coherence, and that's similar to being clear, making sense. And just because you write with, and you know what, it starts with good grammar and good spelling, but your paragraph organization, it matters. This is when it's remarkable. You just take this information, the sentences, and this paragraph has unity. It's all about making mummies, but it's very difficult to follow. Let me read along as I go. The ancient Egyptians were masters of preserving dead people's bodies by making mummies of them. There's our topic sentence. Mummies several thousand years old have been discovered nearly intact. The skin, hair, teeth, finger and toenails, and facial features of the mummies were evident. One can diagnose the diseases they suffered in life, such as smallpox, arthritis, and nutritional deficiencies. The process was remarkably effective. Now, already right there, I'm not sure which process they're referring to. Process of diagnosis, the process of discovering the mummies, or the process of making mummies. It's not clear. Sometimes apparent were the fatal afflictions of the dead people. A middle-aged king died from a blow on the head, and polio killed a child king. Mummification consisted of removing the internal organs, applying natural preservatives inside and out, and then wrapping the body in layers of bandages. Okay, it's very hard to kind of comprehend, but let's rearrange it. And what the little graph that they do is they circle words that are repeated, they box things that are linked, and they underline things that are grammatically parallel when they go together. So it's just kind of outline it for you, but they have rearranged it. And in boxes too would be the magic words I've introduced hopefully to you before, and that is transitions. All right, we start with our topic sentence again. The central idea is that the ancient Egyptians were masters of preserving dead people's bodies by making mummies of them. Basically, we're going to explain what this is. Mummification, what is it? Consisted of removing the internal organs, applying natural preservatives inside and out, and then wrapping the body in layers of bandages. Okay, now I know what mummification is. And the process was remarkably effective. Okay, examples. Indeed, mummies several thousand years old have been discovered nearly intact. Now see, that makes sense. Now it worked. Matter of fact, it worked so well we have found them now. Their skin, hair, teeth, finger, toenails, and facial features are still evident. Their diseases are still diagnosable. Even their fatal afflictions are still apparent. Boy, that makes so much sense. The specific examples go together. You can make out the people's facial features and their skin. You can diagnose their diseases, and you can tell what they died from. It just goes in a very logical sequence. And it's very easy to it doesn't seem difficult to understand at all. The way it was set up here, it was very hard to process that information, and it was exactly the same information. It just wasn't arranged in a way that was linked together properly. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit more. Stay with me here. What this also does, this paragraph sets up a good model. Okay? It's state the topic sentence, explain, and give examples. State, explain, and give examples. If you keep that in mind, you state your topic sentence, explain it, whatever needs to be explained, and give specific examples, then you are on your way to having a well-developed paragraph that has unity, as long as you stay on the task that you state, stay on the path there, and you are working for that cohesion. And if you go explain and then examples, your chances of getting that right go much, much higher. The last one is the organization, and you can see how the order you put things in makes a big difference. Here's some common paragraph schemes from general to specific, and the example that we just looked at with the mummies went from general to specific. Generally, what is mummification? It's effective. Then that general, oh, you look at a mummy, you can see their fingernails and so forth. If you look deeper, more specifically, you can diagnose their diseases, and then more specifically, you can diagnose what they died from. So that's a good pattern, general to specific. Climactic is, something's building up. If you have a story, it might be climactic. You want to do that. Spatial, don't be random. If it doesn't have any other organization, decide whether it's side to side, top to bottom, chronological, first, second, third. But there needs to be some sort of logical sequence in your arrangement. They talk a little bit about parallelism, and this is good. You also find that Criterion will flag the repeated use of she. So sometimes you might want to just reuse the word Ben, the author's last name here. That can work two ways. I don't think that this is really the strongest way to use parallelism, but it does help link things together rather than just stating the information. What I would prefer is that you would use a synonym. The writer made, been, argued, and that will give it the same cohesion that we're looking for here, and not keep doing the she all the way through. There are times when you need to repeat and restate. That helps. It can be overused, so you want to use synonyms, the words that mean the same thing. And then I think lastly I want to point out consistency. Shifts in tense. Tense is the word we use in verbs. The way we word a verb tells the reader whether the action is happening in the present, if it's ongoing, if it happened in the past, or we anticipate it happening in the future. So first of all, we have to write in the correct tense. But when we're writing about something, sometimes it's difficult. We shift back and forth, and that's not good. In the Hopi religion, water is the driving force. Since the Hopi lived, they needed water. Their beliefs are. You're going back and forth to now and the past. Now you got to decide. You got to know: is that current, or is that all in the past? Is it that they live there now and they need water now, or that's something that's true only in the past, and you have to write consistently. Same thing for number. Here it's the kachinas plural, and here it is a kachina singular, and then back to plural. That's very difficult to pick up on in a first draft, or when you're writing it. You have to go back and intentionally look for these things. And we try to help each other out with peer review, and Criterion is really helpful in trying to catch some of this as well. But it says a grammar checker isn't always going to catch it. You have to look. The last thing I wanted to show you today, because I can't show you in Patterns. Patterns has a wonderful list of transitions, and I think that transitions are like the magic ingredient for cohesion. If you get everything else, it just strengthens your paper. They're found in Patterns on page 43, but we're going to look here in Little Brown, and they're on page 45. They talk about them on 44. Transitional expressions are like the little road signs. When you go someplace you've been 100 times, you don't even pay attention to the signs anymore. You know where to turn without. But if you try to explain it to somebody else, you're going to have to tell them, landmarks, or what's the name of the road that they turn on, or how many streets down before they turn right or turn left. And that's what transitions do. You do have to think intentionally. You usually have to go back in and add them until they become part of your vocabulary. And they have things that they indicate. To add or show sequence, you use things like this. Furthermore, moreover, we want to get past just the basic and then. Also, still, we want to develop our vocabulary in this way. Instead of also, likewise, similarly. So there's some that we're going to use naturally, and we want to develop those. Instead of just always using the word but, recreating the sentence that gives the same idea. We have other words that we can use. If we are given an example, we need to give it a transitional tag. So it's something that after you've written, you need to go back and on purpose say, where do I need to add a transition? Where does it make sense? And intentionally add those in. Okay, that concludes our discussion on paragraphs. There are more pages in Little Brown dealing with certain specific types of paragraphs, so you can see more examples there. But if you will go back and make sure you have topic sentences, there's a nice outline in Patterns 46 of an introductory paragraph with a thesis statement and topic sentences that go together with that thesis statement and have little tags, transitional tags, and a concluding paragraph. It'd be really great for you to look at those because this all needs to work together. The paragraph itself could be unified, but if it doesn't go with the thesis statement, it just negates the whole purpose and it doesn't work. So it all has to function together.